with scaling a business, a lot of people talk about people, process, or technology. Are there any components of those kind of three things that you think have been most important with scaling your business?
I like process, so I'm terrible at running a process, but I'm pretty good at designing them. I like systems. The more you can systemize things or develop processes, the more you can take people out of the, it just becomes, let's just follow this. Technology clearly for us is a fascination, has always been a big part of it. Probably the most important thing is people. The right person can just fundamentally change your trajectory.
Yeah.
But it takes a bit of time to work that out.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to say, but until you've really seen it play out, like you suddenly make a good hire, and it's like they're 10 times as good as someone who was, they may be twice as expensive, but they're 10 times as impactful.
As productive, you think?
Yeah.
Wow, 10.
It can be. You just, and that took me some time to work out.
Welcome everyone to Coffee for Scalers, the only podcast where we talk about online video and scaling businesses. So I'm delighted to have Fergus Dyer Smith here today, CEO and founder of Wooshi, so a leader in online video. And actually before today I was researching you a little bit, and you were in online video the last few years, a snow bombing festival in Austria, big festival, biochemistry grad, built a tour operator, brewing, surfing for 8 years. There's a lot of stuff that you know about, so I'm looking forward to talking to you today.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I know about it, but I've definitely done a lot of things. But yeah, and other things in between that as well. But I guess short attention span probably.
Yeah. Well, amazing, and I love your LinkedIn bio. If you haven't seen Fergus's LinkedIn before, if you go there, there's lots of emojis for each and every one.
I've come to love emojis now. I think they're one of those things where we got so into communicating through text, like email, which is just such a bad way of doing anything other than sort of factual. If you try and put any sort of emotion in there, it just comes across the wrong way. Sort of flat emails come across negatively. But emoticons and emojis, they sort of allow you to sort of show, no, I'm being sarcastic, or trying to be funny, or I'm curious about this thing. So actually, I think they really have a
good
place
way
now.
of communicating, massive at younger audiences. Have you tried audio messages yet, and WhatsApp and stuff?
No, I haven't. I have got a LinkedIn audio thing. But I've tried those, but I haven't.
Yeah, my surname definitely needs that. Yeah. Okay, so how's life been recently?
Yeah, I'm mental. Yeah, it's well, especially since. I guess the lockdown year, if you like, that was an interesting time. I think everyone took a bit of a hit early on, and for us as a company, travel was quite a big sector for us, so that obviously disappeared pretty much overnight. We still grew as a company, which is great. Video still grew. I think pretty much the only channel that grew during that period. But in the last 6 months, it's just gone crazy. So we're twice the size we were 6 months ago.
Wow. So, has it been hard to hire people and everything, or has things opened up a bit more?
Hiring's always tough. Hiring good people's tough. But I wouldn't say it's been particularly difficult, but it's never easy.
It's amazing to actually see how the hiring market's changed in the last few months as well.
And a lot of talk about people moving around and wanting things, but we've got a few. We're always a remote company. We've always been a remote company since day dot. And so it's cool. So for 8 years. So for us, it's not really a big move. But we're also very well set up for it. So when people say, can you do remote working? We're saying, well, actually, we're a sort of remote first company anyway. So even though we've got offices all over the place.
How does it work? Do you have so is it anyone is allowed work fully from home then, or is it fully?
It's changed over the years actually. When we first started, it was a fully we didn't. You could work from anywhere as long as you got your work done. That's all we cared about. Now what we've found actually, as the company's grown, there are. I've realized, actually it was more during lockdown that I realised this. There's actually certain times when you think, you really need to get people together to do those things. So like today, we've just had a big product day where sort of 4 hours full on, and I'm thinking that's 3 weeks worth of Zoom calls probably just done in 4 hours. So I think you just have to know where it's appropriate, when it's appropriate, and actually there are different age groups, different people at different life stages that want to be in the office. They want that environment. And so I think it seems to me that the best situation is essentially a a mix.
Yeah.
The key is trusting your employees. You've got to trust that people are going to be able to are going to do what you ask them to do. So
yeah. It's funny. I saw a video I think on LinkedIn during the week about like the government saying to everyone, get back into work, and it's like, it was a skit, and it was like, technology hasn't advanced in any way the way we can work, and we should all go to work to inconvenient places and go in and out every day.
Exactly.
And
spend a fortune on travel. And you know, and then pick your kids up, all these sorts of things. You just just let people get on with it.
There's so many things wrong with it in the first place. Yeah. And what was the initial idea of the business?
So that's interesting, because the business has changed quite a bit since then. So the original idea was...
It was 2009, was it?
Yeah, sort of. So it's a bit of a grey start, because it started off just as this idea that, okay, there's this thing called YouTube, which had been around for a couple of years.
Only 4 years at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, really people knew about it because of MySpace and stuff like that. I come from a family of filmmakers, so my entire family's been in film since film began. So I've always had a sort of passing interest in that industry. Cameras had come down in price, software had come down in price, and I was just fascinated with this idea that a kid in a bedroom in, I don't know, Ukraine can make just as good a stuff as, a major director, not quite, but more sitting in LA. And so the idea was, well, can we somehow surface this amazing talent and connect it with work?
Okay.
So that was the original idea. And so essentially what came out of that was a two-sided market.
Yeah.
It was like, let's connect creators with work. And in the early days, that meant SMBs, because we thought it would all be about price. So how can I get a video made at the lowest possible price?
All these SMB production companies.
So it was freelancers on the one end mostly, because it's a freelance industry typically, and small businesses. Yeah. So let's, I don't know, a small technology company that needs to explain a video. Actually, it was something else even before that, but let's just assume that's where we sort of started. And then the way it changed over the years was that we got that to go. We got that ramping at a sort of good cadence, and we were driving in hundreds of potential projects a month, but the cost of acquiring those customers was really high. The lifetime value was really low. Yeah. So it was all completely the wrong way. So you'd get, what we found was, small businesses, basically they're all about price, and they might want one or two videos a year max. So that eventually we had to sort of shift, because we realised that A, we were going to run out of money, and B, the market just wasn't there yet. Yeah. Really. I mean, I know we all think of video now as a sort of major marketing tool, but back in those days it just wasn't. Yeah. So the pivot we made there was, actually what we did have was a small number of customers that were buying lots of video. Okay. And when we looked at those more deeply, we realised they were big enterprise customers. Yeah. And we were it was a bit of a surprise, because we just hadn't anticipated that they may look at a platform like ours to do that. So that's the shift we made at that point in time. Still an open marketplace. And then since then it's moved now much more towards, we still have that element. So we still have essentially a network that fuels the business. It's more closed off now, so actually we're really the only customer buying on behalf of our customers. Okay. But we sort of moved into other areas as well. So essentially what we're now about is helping a customer or client manage and run and sort of operate what we call video operations. So it could be mostly it's production, which is obviously quite a hard thing to scale, but it moves often to things like we'll help them with understanding, measurement video, being able to automate some of the processes and all sorts of things. But so that's... And
so the marketplace today, it's no longer like, you're no longer trying to drive the demand more, that's yourselves. But are you still have a lot of supply there?
Yeah, so we still have all that supply. So what that means is one of our...
But the demand is all your clients now.
Exactly. So one of our selling points when we go into customers is to say, look, we come in as essentially a video operations partner. What that gives you is a production reach anywhere in the world. We can mobilize production teams anywhere, almost at any time. So if you need to capture stuff in Japan and then Australia, and then we don't have to send anyone anywhere. it all gets then centralized. We look after quality control and
That's
on
cool.
brand and all that sort of stuff. So it's still there as a major part of our production operation. We don't actually make anything as a business.
Yeah.
But we
You
sort of
manage it and everything.
exactly.
Yeah,
The conductors.
I remember when I was at Google that was a bit of a nightmare, that like trying to get maybe one marketing team in one region will want a video creative or something, trying to figure out and navigate the market, and then somewhere else. So that makes total sense.
Yeah, for some businesses, they are geographically spread inherently. So in travel or hotels, for example, they need a consistency to the brand, but all their product is geographically distributed. Yeah. So for them, it's a major problem. Like, how do we capture our product without flying crews around everywhere and making it really expensive? So that's there's lots of instances like that.
Cool. And so what kind of scale are you at today for our audience? I guess employees or revenue, if you're able to say.
So we're sort of 60-ish employees now, split between here and the US. Mostly. Our customers are typically our biggest customer is Amazon, so I guess the biggest company in the world practically. And we work across. We do a lot in biotech and pharma and that sort of life sciences. So we do a lot of work for the biggest companies in the world you've never heard of type businesses. And that's because mostly we produce what we sort of term enabler content. I guess it's like hygiene type content. Lots of the stuff that you might never see. Training videos, how-to videos, explainer videos, internal comms, external comms. We do ads as well, video, digital ads. But we're not really playing in, say, TV ad space, or we're sort of much more involved in this.
Google had this big hero hub and hygiene thing, even though they changed the word hygiene to something else, didn't they?
They went to.
I didn't like that word.
It was a nice framework. I mean, we used to use that framework quite a bit. I even bought Hero Hub Hygiene once as a domain name.
Oh, brilliant!
I used it as a lead gen tool. We used to sort of use that as a way to help people understand how the sort of buckets that content.
What an entrepreneur buying the video Hero Hub Hygiene.
Actually, I think I still got it. It's still a driver of leads.
Go to that site right now, see what's up there. Yeah.
Exactly, and you'll probably see the same examples, because the one they used to regurgitate was the sort of Van Damme Volvo trucks. Which is a brilliant.
Which cost an absolute fortune, or the guy jumping out of space for Red Bull.
Right, yeah, exactly. That's so. And I mean that's probably 10 years old now. But it's still great. Proud to do that even today. But actually, we think that framework's probably a bit dated now, especially since the platforms have all changed. Now you've got stories and short form, long form. So it's probably not as relevant. In fact, we have our own framework now called Real Time, Make Time, and Prime Time, which is just slightly better. Well, I'll do my best to describe it, because it's a guy that works here who sort of came up with it. But essentially, what it sort of flips Hero Hub Hygiene around the other way. So what it says is, ultimately, you're using content to drive people towards your longer form. So when you're looking at when you look at any of these social apps, they all essentially have the same structure. You've got stories across the top. Then you've got the main feed, which is like 15 seconds or so, and then you've got some longer form, whether it's sort of Instagram has a longer form,
IGTV or whatever. Right?
So the idea is you use those formats in that manner. So you think about stories is throwaway sort of real-time stuff. You can do lots of it. You've got 5 chances to appear in one view, so you may as well push it out regularly, cheap throwaway stuff. Drive people then into your main feed, which is the sort of make time, which is, I've got to spend a bit more time to engage with that. Which then ultimately, if that's engaging enough, will lead them then into the prime time, which is, I'm going to take in sort of, the 20-minute, 30-minute video. And if you think about it in those terms, you can actually then start thinking about your strategy and your structure of how you produce videos, because you then flip it around and think, well, I'll start the prime, what's the main thing, how can I break that down into make time, and then what's the natural feeder for that from a prime time point, from a real time point of view. But so that's it's just a different way of. The problem with Hero Hub Hygiene is that what it drove in YouTube especially was lots of like mashups, and just everyone went for the easy bit, which was the hygiene type stuff, just volume. And it just created a lot of rubbish, which then more recently doesn't get anything now. It's like penalised even. What they really want is longer engaged
original
views.
content and stuff. Yeah, that's an interesting framework though. Like in terms of thinking of how Instagram is structured, how TikTok is structured. Even though TikTok is trying to get more of the longer content now, and then YouTube is trying to get more of the short form content.
Well, so they're just missing the gap. So like YouTube now has their shorts, YouTube Shorts, and when you look at the mobile app, it's exactly the same.
I think
structure.
that's a really good framework for looking at things going forward. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah,
until it breaks.
Well, I guess one thing that I've noticed recently, like I was at Google about 6 years ago. Then I moved to Tubular Labs, which was much more about analytics and as well like more about organic than paid. And now I'm back in paid at Precise TV, and I'm amazed after like taking a gap of 6 years, just how the volume of advertisers who are now playing on YouTube versus 6 years ago. It seems like everyone wants a piece of it, but. For me, it's kind of like they don't want to do Hero Hub Hygiene per se. If like the production costs are going to be massive, it's more like how do I get my message out with video to large audiences?
That's interesting because the thing I've seen, and we're increasingly now trying to educate people about is, everyone got trained by Google basically. To think about advertising in terms of direct action. So, clicks, you see something, you take an action and you can measure it. Mostly from
search.
Exactly, because it all stems from search, right? So where there's lots of intent, and you can, you display an ad, which is easy to click on and sort of take you somewhere. The problem was that all then got sort of transported over to video, which just doesn't work like that way, right? It's true advertising is about trying to get infect a behavioural change or plant sort of brand into someone's brain or make some association, which is why the TV ads of like the 80s and the 90s are so brilliant. Because that's the only way you had to do it. And if you're playing a video ad to somebody, you've now got a 15-second, and you really do need at least 15 seconds or 30 seconds to sort of do the same thing. Just trying to drive them through to a click or even a view to a certain degree is not actually what you're after, is it? What you're really after is some sort of change in someone's perception. So that's what you're trying to measure. Very hard to measure. But what we all move towards is the easy bit. Well, how many people viewed it? How many people clicked on it? But I find it interesting that I think people are slowly starting to understand that and thinking that's why actually the quality of the creative actually matters. Ultimately.
Massively.
You'll know it precisely. You can optimize to death, but if the creative is utter rubbish,
you're
just optimizing rubbish.
So why waste media spent?
More people are seeing your crap ads.
But I guess it's a case of like, if we just think of search again, it's so easy to create ad text, like so easy. But with video, it's still, and it will probably still remain for many, many years, hard to have narrative with video and expensive and everything. I mean, video is not the cheapest. It's certainly a lot more expensive than writing 3 lines of text. And as someone who has been like really bullish about online video even back since 2008 2009 and I watched a video of you yesterday in 2015 where you're like, it's all about video, and you're so right. Like, what are you excited about now with video? What do you think is kind of next? Or what gets you excited?
So there's a few things I think that are super interesting. I think one is something that we talk about quite a bit, which is what we call video first. We refer to it as video first, which crosses a number of different areas. But this is just this idea that video is sort of like the winning format, if you like. You could argue that mobile devices were the winning device. Video is really the winning format. It works so well across almost all devices. It's great at delivering messages. So if you think video first, both practically in terms of actually if you get your video done first, then everything else can feed from that. So it makes your whole content thinking great, but also sort of contextually narratives and things like that. So that's interesting, is that seeing companies move much more towards video being the driver of all their campaigns. It's like looking at that thing first and then everything else comes from it. So that's interesting. I think finally, I was talking to one of our devs today, shoppable video. As now that it's starting to become native to platforms, is going to be interesting. Places like China, it's already a massive deal, but it's not. They've been trying to do it for almost since video began. Is trying to create a way to buy through videos, and it's just never happened.
Yeah.
I suspect it's because they're all independent players and things like that, and actually it needed to be inherent in the platforms that they reside. So if you can buy the top that's in the TikTok, it's straight from there without leaving that. So that's going to be super interesting. And then I think the other big interesting thing is now with connected TV and the sort of major platforms like Disney Plus, Netflix, all these others, like what's going to happen? We've got so many of them now, Prime, Apple. Is there going to be some consolidation there? Netflix, like how's that all going to pan out, including YouTube? I don't know. I'm excited to see what's going to happen there. I don't know what the answer is, but eventually it's going to become too much. Just like how many subscriptions can you possibly have? Yeah. So I think that's interesting.
Oh,
as well.
Fascinating. Like the video first and the shoppable piece actually for me is like, it's kind of like shoppable. People have been trying for years and years, but it now feels like the market timing's right.
Yeah, mate. I don't know if it's the market timing or whether it. Well, maybe I'm sure it's a mixture of that and.
Pandemic driving.
Maybe, yeah, exactly. That's another one. TikTok, I think, is interesting in that it's a different
reach.
A different sort of demographic now coming into it. Like I said, there's these. You see these sort of videos of farmers in China selling hundreds of thousands of oranges. Through the, and you just think, is that gonna somehow come across to us?
You even see Shopify integrating with Spotify. They announced this week, and they've integrated with.
I think they're integrated with TikTok as well.
TikTok,
so you can literally just buy from a Shopify store. So I think that's going to become more and more fascinating. So as I remember someone once saying to me that the web always wanted to be video. Really, it was just a bandwidth problem. If it hadn't been for bandwidth, it would always have been video from the beginning. So that's. Maybe that's where we're finally getting to.
I agree, And the video first point,
yes.
How have you seen marketing departments at your clients have to adapt and change with that video first?
So it's what so this is something that we've been I guess driving, which is typically what we see with a lot of our customers is actually it's video last. So what happens is a campaign gets sort of designed by, I don't know, creative agency or internally. It comes into and they think, right, we need to, we've got display and we've got social.
Oh God, this thing's coming.
Right, okay, here we go. And then it's, well, what's the video going to be?
Yeah.
And you're like, you're 6 weeks into it. You're 3 weeks away from launch. Yeah. The video's the bit that's going to take the longest. So just from a practical point of view, think about your video first, because that's going to be by far the longest thing to actually deliver. So we've been trying over the years to say, look, video has to come so much earlier in your planning, because if you want it to land at the same time as your product and everything else, it needs at least, let's say 6 weeks to sort of deliver something of value. But actually, the more we thought about it, the more we realised that it's also a great piece of pillar content. So if you can think about the video first, what you're thinking about is you've got to think about narrative, you've got to think about visuals, you've got to think about story, you've got to think about product placement. All these sorts of things have to get thought through, which then, if you think about it, okay, well, now we've got loads of visuals, so that can feed into display. We've got audio, so that can feed into something else. We've got narrative, so we can break that down into different parts, which can now feed other pieces. So you've got all this stuff that can feed out of that video if you just do it first. And of course, you've got the video part. So it just makes practically a lot more sense. It'll save you money because you're not rushing through, not paying premiums to do things quickly. And it's the format that works the best across most of the big platforms. So it's just a way of getting more efficient with your thinking. And it doesn't just necessarily work in advertising. It could work in training, or it could work in anything where you've got messaging. If you think through, okay, what's the video first here, and everything else can feed out of it. So if you've got, if you're delivering training, you can think about the video, and then, what's the transcript? How's that going to feed into questions? How's that going to feed into manuals? All that sort of stuff. So obviously it's massively self-serving, but it feels like it's playing out, in the fact that there's multiple generations now, who just expect information to be delivered to them in that format.
Yes.
So you may as well get it out of the way.
Yeah.
And then the others are like bonuses.
Yeah. Oh God, I've been watching some videos recently about Mr. Beast. You know Mr. Beast on YouTube.
Very much so, yeah.
And he talks about like his creation process, and yes, thinking about the narrative for their brainstorming. Then the thumbnail is the next thing, and it's like, unless the thumbnail, they can think of a good enough thumbnail for it, they change the narrative almost. So like they're just crazily obsessed around thumbnail and the narrative, making sure that they can support view rates of the video of like above 60% all the way through. Whoa. And if they can't do that, they think it's like a failure. I'll link in the description of this video that Mr. Beast video, but he is insane. I
mean, that I'm so impressed with that guy. I mean, obviously my kids sort of got me onto it, but
are they fans?
In the first instance, I think they were. I mean, they're a bit old for it now, but well, I say a bit old for it. They sort of, kids grow out things quickly, but and this is a few years back. I remember seeing him thinking, "Oh, who is this guy?" And now I'm probably more obsessed with him than they are. Yeah. I mean, that guy's going to be a billionaire. He's just so impressive. Yeah.
He just lives and breathes it every single day.
Very aptly named.
Yeah. Cool. So then we've talked a lot about online video, like thinking about businesses now, which is the other part of this podcast. With scaling a business, a lot of people talk about like people, process, or technology. Are there any components of those kind of three things that you think have been most important with scaling your business, or has it been all three?
Well, it's definitely been all three. I like process, so I'm terrible at running a process, but I'm pretty good at designing them.
Oh, cool.
Originally I was a developer, so right back in the day I've sort of got that sort of in me. Yeah. Well, no, I can't claim to be a developer because my developers will eat me alive for saying that. I had, I'd sort of dabbled in that world, but so I like trying to understand whether it's sales, whether it's marketing. I like systems, things that you can sort of systemize. And in part that's because the more you can systemize things or develop processes, the more you can take people out of the it just becomes, let's just follow this. So I'd say definitely that's a big part of what's helped us grow. Technology clearly for us is a fascination, has always been a big part of it. And I guess probably the most important thing is people. It took me a while to work that out though. Yeah. I guess I put some of these other things higher up, but actually realised over. I know this is just so obvious, but the right person can just fundamentally change your trajectory. Yeah. But it takes a bit of time to work that out. Yeah. Because it's easy to say, but until you've really seen it play out, like you suddenly make a good hire, and it's like they're 10 times as good as someone who was. They may be twice as expensive, but they're 10 times as impactful. As productive, you think? Yeah. Wow, 10. It can be. You just and that took me some time to work out. And what do you think the strike rate of like hiring exceptional talent is? Oh my God, really low. You think 10% or? No, if that. It's that again is also really hard because you've got so little to go on. Yeah. I've probably got. Well, I've got a lot of people now in the company that I would put in that scale, but that's taken 8 years. Yeah. Do you think as you've learned, or just over the years, have you learned how to get better at hiring? Yes, get other people to do it. So actually, the key thing, one of the things I was talking to one of our investor directors recently about this, and actually one of the things I've realised is if you get somebody good, really good, is asking them who are they going to bring with them. Because the really good people... That's a good question. Right, the really good people, will have an amazing group of other people, 3 or 4 people that they worked with on a few things that have kicked ass. Yeah. And if they're really good, those people will jump with them. Yeah. They'll say, I'm in. Yeah. So it's a great way to sort of work out. Yeah. Because then if you can look at those people and rate them, and I've had this that's in particular with one person at the company who brought in recently, and he filled the company with maybe 4 or 5 people now, and they're all exceptional. Yeah, so that's cool. That's one trick. Yeah, I guess as well, like if you ask that question and someone kind of like they don't instantly think of individuals, then you probably know that. Well, that's I mean, it's not always that easy, but for people that have done well, have a confidence about their ability to lead others, and a confidence that those people would be happy to be led by them again in a new environment. That tells you a lot.
Great tip. That's a good one. And then on the processes piece, which is fascinating for me, I'm similar to you. I guess I don't really like as much putting in the processes, but like planning it is good and stuff. But have you any tips for that? Like, do you use whiteboards, or do you think about like, how do you create the best systems for processes?
That's a good question. I think one of the things would be, I mean, this is probably me repeating what has been said many times before, but if you're doing something many times, if you find yourself doing the same task several times, then it would be thinking about, okay, how do I just, the simplest process is just, I'm going to write this down in a shared document that anyone else can access and refer them to it. The next step up is, okay, can I give them a tool to perhaps do some of these things? So when things like, when Zapier came along, or if this then that, these sort of API connectors, I mean, there's so much amazing stuff that you can just suddenly change, stuff that might have taken you've got to do this, move it over here, and then post it in Slack, and then now you can just get that all automated. But I mean, we use whiteboards, but typically that sort of stuff is just, I'm just looking at, I'm doing this again, I'm going to spend a day and just actually get it documented in some way, and then look at parts of that sort of step process and see where it can be automated or sent into software or whatever.
Cool. What are your go-to technology providers for the business? Like you mentioned shared drive there. Is that Google Drive?
No. So I mean, our stack is like, we live in Slack.
Interesting.
I expect most companies do now, but before that it was Skype. Like I said, we were always a remote company. It was Skype originally, and then we moved to Slack as soon as that came out. Although we dabbled a bit with HipChat, I remember. Salesforce is just like everywhere now. What else? Zapier, which is just, I don't know.
It's APIs, is it?
Yeah. Well, Zapier is essentially a tool that allows you to connect APIs. So, as an example, a simple one would be...
And make them more accessible to people then, is it?
Yeah, so for example, you might want to connect, you've closed a deal in Salesforce and you want to send a notification into Slack. Well, it may not be a native thing to do that, but you can just connect one into Zapier and then fire it off.
Okay.
But you can get way more complicated than that. So you can actually start building some you can always build like software just by connecting other tools together.
It gets really expensive. I've done that at other companies where we're developing these things ourselves, and it gets really expensive.
Well, exactly, and that's what you used to have to do, but now you can just use some of these tools and just connect them all up.
Well, that's cool.
It's a great tool.
Do you use Slack? Who do you use for like presentations and stuff? Is it Microsoft or Google?
In terms of like decks?
We
use a thing called Quilla.
Right.
Which is a so it's an interesting question, because one of the things we realised was that when you send out PDFs, most people are reading their email on a phone. So PDFs just come out tiny and really small, difficult to use, so you're
you have to zoom in.
But if you use something like Quilla, which is essentially an online tool for developing presentations, it's responsive.
Oh, right, great.
So it makes presentations responsive. So now when someone gets it through, it's a much better experience. Plus you can track it all, of course, and see like what have they viewed, where have they viewed, that sort of thing. So that's
cool.
We use a lot of that.
Oh, that's cool.
We use decks as well. It's like, as every company.
I at the moment I'm struggling moving from Google Drive back to Microsoft.
I have to say the Quilla is great for sort of functionality, but it's not great from a design point of view. It can get quite ugly quite quickly.
All right, cool. And then last question. What are you most proud of in your career to date?
I think most proud of surviving
through the pandemic so far. Touch wood.
We started with nothing and literally must have died or should have been dead on multiple occasions. So that's an achievement in itself. I think some of the work, and this I can't claim this, but the people in the company, some of the work they produce is just phenomenal. And every week they produce stuff, and I look and I think, I can't believe that's coming out of
Cool.
this building. And then also there's, I think the other thing is, we've got a lot of people who've been in the company for a long time, who came in, some people have worked there almost the full 8 years, some have came in as, an intern, and is now like one guy's head of creative, started as an intern, so that, I love seeing that, sort of seeing people, faces that have been around the company for a good amount of time, because they've got, there's plenty of other places they could go.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably a bit, but yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
Is what sort of keeps you going.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Great. Well, thank you
Cool.
so much, Fergus. Yeah, thank you for coming on Coffee for Scalers. And you said earlier, video first, shoppable. And what was the third one again you mentioned of the trends?
Oh, the sort of accumulation of all the big networks and what's going to happen there. Across all these big platforms like connected TV. How connected TV is going to play into that. The fact that YouTube, I watch a lot of YouTube now through my television device.
Yeah, it's massive now, connected TV on YouTube.
Exactly. So it's, that I just find that interesting to see where we're going. When you look at my kids, for example, that's the only way they consume content is through these on-demand platforms. So.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Great.
Such knowledge in the online video industry. And check out Wooshi if you haven't checked it out already. And hubherohygiene.com.
Hero Hygiene.
All right, thank you. See you.
Bye.